Ladies and gentlemen, we just finished the work that lasted 2 p.m. Did you meet yesterday? Members of the BRICS Association, today we continue our discussion with the participation of the invited countries. The BRICS countries have not yet joined, but have expressed a steady interest in developing ties in this regard. Them, in addition to the 10 BRICS members, today 12 other countries in the world are working with us. The countries that represent Asia, Africa, Latin America. We discussed the most pressing international issues and challenges facing all countries, analyzing the current international situation, the role of the world majority in shaping the international agenda, and within the framework of today's BRICS discussions with the participation of invited countries, all delegations expressed the need to fundamentally reform the existing global governance system. The meeting emphasized the need for collective efforts to achieve the goals of sustainable development, security, and economic growth, and emphasized the strengthening of the role of the countries of the Global South. Most delegations stressed the destructive nature of the selfish trade protectionist policies being pursued against the United States and its allies. The amount of funds allocated by donors for development purposes is very small, in stark contrast to the hundreds of billions of dollars and euros allocated to the Kiev regime to continue the war against the Russian Federation. The West has been preparing for years, and now, as he claims, it is trying to defeat us on the battlefield. This sentiment is not supported by any BRICS members or countries that cooperate with the association. One of the negative factors undermining the right to development of all countries is the unilateral restrictive measures and illegal sanctions actively implemented by Western countries. Their international arsenal and their attempts to maintain their dominance are all convinced that the United States and its allies are undermining the international financial and economic architecture, seriously abusing the role of the dollar and Western financial markets, and using unfortunate intensive methods that are not actually near theaters. We have paid special attention to the discussion of security issues at the global level in response to new challenges and threats, especially terrorism, drug trafficking, organized crime, trafficking. Crisis situations, especially in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Eurasia, are considered. All participants, without exception, paid special attention to the tragic situation in the Gaza Strip, where 37 million civilians had died. About 100 million people were injured, and the operation continues, causing more and more innocent victims every day. We stress the undisputed need for sustained efforts to support the formation of a multipolar world order. The Charter of the United Nations requires the sovereign equality of states, an equal dialogue among countries without a hidden agenda to find collective answers to the challenges facing the world. We have a common view that the BRICS countries should play an active role in these processes. Let me remind you that the BRICS countries account for more than 1/3 of the world's area and 45% of the world's population in terms of GDP. The BRICS countries have bypassed the top 7. Last year, when there were only 5 members of the BRICS countries' BIP index accounted for more than 32% of the world's gross domestic product. As we all know, the facts prove that the BRICS countries are the locomotive of the world economy in many aspects. According to various sources, the average economic growth rate of BRICS countries this year текущем году средние показатели экономического роста государств BRICS they continue to exceed, significantly outpace the global economic growth rate. The Russian presidency has planned about 20 events, of which about 70 have been held, including priority areas such as nuclear medicine, climate, sustainable development, and peaceful space exploration. The International Film Festival was held in April this year. BRICS countries. In May, an academic forum was held and today's meeting of education ministers opened. Tomorrow we will start the BRICS Games in Kazan. These are just some of the events we are holding. Under our chairmanship, we conducted the review in accordance with the arrangements of the BRICS summit held in Johannesburg last year. Work on modal agreement for you. In the winter, I will point out that the number of countries interested in joining our work is steadily increasing, approaching 36. All our PABRICS friends understand that such a request cannot be without a positive response, and we will continue to work in this direction. We will prepare appropriate recommendations for the Association Summit to be held in Kazan on the 22nd and 24th. In October, we felt the support of partners who were willing to continue their efforts to strengthen our full range of projects, whether political and security, economic and financial, or cultural and humanitarian interaction. After the BRICS meeting held yesterday, YEMCA adopted a joint statement reflecting the attitude of the BRICS countries on hot issues on the international agenda. In the spirit of the assessment I have made above, I am very satisfied that the work has been expanded and that everyone has been able to reach consensus on even the most difficult issues reflected in the text. I recommend that all media representatives pay due attention to this document, our joint statement, your reporting from Nizhny Novgorod, and subsequent analysis. Нашему совместному заявлению в ваших репортажах из Нижнего Новгорода и при последующем анализе итогов нашей работы. As a result of our work here, I am ready to answer your questions, but before we begin the interactive part of our meeting, I would like to express once again my gratitude to the leaders of the Nizhny Novgorod region and city. Nizhny Novgorod personally extended a warm welcome to the governor of the region for helping organize the event. Everyone celebrated this moment in their speeches today. Multipolarity is not something that depends on the wishes of any country or group of multipolar polycentric bone countries, otherwise we call it objectively. Its evolving historical process is impossible to stop. Although the West is trying to slow it down in order to prolong its hegemony, which has been declared the main goal of the United States and its allies. They didn't shy away. They say the world order cannot be changed, and the dominance still belongs to the Americans. Главенствующая роль принадлежит американцам, NATO and the European Union have not openly shirked this mentality, which is manifested in all the actions of the Western collective. It is the West that is trying to divide the world into different blocks. However, remember that for several years, the Americans have quietly held a special summit for democracy in recent years, personally appointed participants, and issued invitations to them. The criteria for receiving the invitation were loyalty to the United States, first and foremost to Joe Biden's Democratic administration, AA. Everyone else was. Described as the same series of bloc autocracies, EU Foreign Affairs Chief Barrel's infamous statement that Europe is a garden of flowers surrounded by jungles. Well, let's not forget the statement of the US Secretary of State, Blinkino, who said those who don't want to be
который заявил, что те, кто не захочет оказаться
at the democratic table, that is, he will not make a choice in favor of democratic values, and he may be on the menu served at this very democratic table. Well, it's hard to even think of a more Russian neo-colonialism like this, so it's not BRICS who is isolating himself from the rest of the world. On the contrary, what is the objective development of the BRICS countries? A group of countries interested in justice on the BRICS international stage does not claim to be a pole of poles. There will be more in the field of a centripetal world, and today we talk about the integration process that is mainly developing in Eurasia, the fastest growing continent. This is also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, the ASEAN Cooperation Council. Arab Gulf states. This is, of course, the Commonwealth of Independent States and a number of other integration associations that are establishing links and are beginning to coordinate their actions on the same agenda. We are seeing similar processes on the African continent. The African Union is gaining more and more power in organizing the lives of the continent and the countries participating in the Latin American community of nations. Latin America and the Caribbean CEVAC is getting too breath, especially given the proactive role of Brazilian President Lula da Silva. There are also a number of sub-regional integration structures and processes. Unification wants to rely more on its own strength and at the same time does not want to rely on the whims and double standards applied to the West within the framework. Seems to be established. The course of decades of global architecture. Process management is the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. When are all these mechanisms? The West began to be used roughly to promote its realistic goals, applying double standards. Everyone wants not to be addicted to it. From this mechanism, which is led by the Americans and which, as I said, they have abused grossly, imposing sanctions, threatening naughty ones, forcing everyone to join illegal sanctions, but more, and the processes of globalization that seem to have united the world not long ago. They are now fragmented into regional processes. Processes that enable countries participating in trade, economy, finance and investment projects to be protected from arbitrary, negative and subversive external interference. As I said, this process is objective and the BRICS countries include countries from most regions of the world. He has every opportunity to help these. Regional integration associations have developed their projects and programs and gradually harmonized their work. And, if you will, at the global level, the BRICS is likely to play the role of a soft, non-dictated integrator, not dictating its own approach, but seeking to unify natural projects and procedures in different parts of the world. That doesn't mean that by doing so, BRICS and the ones I mentioned. Regional integration structures are somehow isolated from the West. We still have the opportunity to communicate within the United Nations, even though the Americans and their allies are trying to replace collective work with ideas they formulate in their own circles and then try to impose them through the Secretariat and international organizations that rely heavily on them. I repeat, there are on the scene. When the West realizes that its efforts to maintain hegemony by blackmailing illegal sanctions, ultimatums, and even military force are doomed to failure. I hope this will happen one day, although I don't expect it to happen soon, but if it does happen, the West will realize the need for equal dialogue with the rest of the world. I assure you that the BRICS members and most other countries in the world will be ready for this. But of course, it is necessary to agree on the terms of this dialogue. There's no need to invent anything. There is a UN charter which states that the UN is the foundation. In accordance with the principle of sovereign equality of states here, only in this way can the West become a respected member of the international community. Well, for now, those who are ready for equal work are doing it in their own circles.